G'day ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. I'm of course Calflos, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Path of Champions in Legends of Runeterra. We're going to be doing something a little bit different today. That's because I'll be revealing to you my level up guide here on the Path of Champions. Basically what adventures that I would use or do in order to level up my champions effectively here in this game mode. So this question has been asked several times here on the channel, and basically I figured it might be worth covering since there is going to be a new expansion on the horizon. So some of you might be looking to unlock some of the new champions and essentially just level them up as quick as you can. And which also brings me to another thing I'd like to quickly touch on before getting into the video, which is basically my plan on moving forward. So as I mentioned, there is going to be a new expansion on the horizon. So basically what I'd like to do is I'd actually like to slow down a little bit on my Aurelion Sol runs. Don't worry, I'm not giving up entirely. We are going to be doing Aurelion Sol runs on the channel consistently. All I'm doing is just slowing down a little bit, just so that I could hold on to some of my wild fragments here in preparation of the next event. So I don't think much needs to be said. The reason why you're going to want to hold on to your fragments is so that you can unlock some of the new champions right off the get-go. But if you are an F2P player like myself, you will probably still not have enough. As you can see here, I still have a lot of champions from the previous adventures that are still not yet unlocked. But if you are a pay-to-play player, you might want to hold on to some of those spare fragments in order to unlock some of the new champions as well as upgrade your pre-existing ones. However, don't worry, for long-time viewers of my channel, I will be getting to Leona eventually, and once we're done with her, we will be moving on to other champions. But in the meantime, we're just going to slow down a little bit. We're going to tap the brakes a little bit on the Aurelion Sol content. So in the meantime, we're probably just going to do one or two alternate build runs here on the channel. Alright, so let's quickly head back out and we are going to go over today's agenda, which is of course, what are my go-to adventures to leveling up a champion here in the Path of Champions. Now, I'm going to present you screenshots of two plans that I usually follow here. Don't worry, it's not as complex as it sounds. It's a really simple plan. Basically, two sets of 3 adventures that I would usually do when I'm leveling up a champion. Alright, so I have plan A and plan B here. Plan A is the adventures that are my go-to adventures, which are a little bit harder, but the rewards are probably well worth it. Plan B is slightly easier than Plan A. It's an alternative adventure, and it's the plan that I usually fall back on if I have some difficulty doing one adventure from Plan A. So let's quickly go over the adventures in Plan A first. Now, in Plan A, I have for level 1 to 10, the 2-star Nautilus, level 11 to 20, the 3-star Thresh, level 21 and above, the 4-star Aurelion Sol. On the other hand, as for Plan B, level 1 to 10 is going to feature the 1.5-star Gangplank, level 11 to 20 features the 2.5-star Viktor, and level 21 and above is the 3.5-star Galio. Alright, so let's kick things off really quickly with the 2-star Nautilus. Now, the reason why I use the 2-star Nautilus when I'm leveling up from 1 to 11 is essentially because of the way this adventure works. Nautilus is a really slow champion. He comes on at mana 7, which means there's probably going to be ample time in order for you to deal enough Nexus damage to the enemy, and if you don't deal enough Nexus damage before the Nautilus comes on, you should still be able to do it before the Deep gets triggered. However, there are certain exceptions, and if the Deep gets triggered, it could be a little bit scary, but in my opinion, you should be able to do it before the Deep gets triggered. Another reason why I recommend the 2-star adventure for level 1 to 10 is quite simply because of the mini-boss. Sejuani is the mini-boss in this particular adventure, and as we all know, Sejuani is a 6-cost champion, which means she should also come on fairly late, and you should be able to close out the game rather easy or rather early. This adventure also nets you a total of 1925 XP after the multiplier of this difficulty, of course, which I probably should have mentioned earlier. Difficulty also affects the multiplier of XPs that you get in the battle. So taking on a more harder adventure will give you more XP, taking on an easier adventure will give you less XP, even though you get the same amount of progression. However, one thing to note here that's really important is that if you can get deeper into an easier campaign, you're gonna get more XP than exiting earlier from a harder campaign. Hopefully that makes sense, and hopefully my explanation of it is understandable. But anyway, let's move on to the counterpart of the Plan B, which is the 1.5-star Gangplank. Now, the 1.5-star Gangplank is also fairly easy in its own right. If I'm not mistaken, this mini-boss is going to be Swain. Swain could be a little bit scary because of the way he works. He is fairly aggressive, but he is a 5-cost champion, so you should be able to end this game rather early as well. Now, the Gangplank itself is also a 5-cost champion, but the main problem with the Gangplank essentially is its signature power. It's not stated here because this is the special rules, but the Gangplank itself has a signature power which will actually have a Dreadway created in his hand, and he will summon a powder keg every round start. This could be really disruptive on the earlier turns since you're probably going to be playing a lot of cheap units, so sometimes the Gangplank can potentially disrupt your flow and it could be a little bit problematic. However, it is fairly easy in its own right, and I don't think you should have too much problem when you're taking on this adventure. This adventure, however, gives you a total of 700 XP if I am not mistaken. It's been a while since I've actually done the 1.5 star adventure. I have always been doing this 2-star adventure here with the Nautilus, but frankly, there is really no right or wrong answer here as always. If you are having some difficulty in the Nautilus here, feel free to just head down to the Gangplank. It should be fine. And if you're still having some trouble with the Gangplank, there's definitely no shame in heading all the way back to Demacia and going into the Garen adventure here, the 1-star Garen adventure. But moving on to the next set of adventures here, which is gonna be for the level 11 to level 20. Sticking to plan A, I recommend doing the Thresh adventure, the 3-star Thresh adventure. And the reason for this is quite simply because this is probably the easier 3-star adventure in the game. As we all know, there's probably only 2 3-star adventures at the moment, the other one being in Shurima, which involves Kai'Sa. I don't particularly like this adventure because of the way this adventure is set up. The first enemy, which is the Rockhopper, could be a little bit problematic because it keeps getting vulnerable and it keeps buffing the units whenever it summons a landmark, so it could be a little bit problematic to take on, and it could result in a really early exit. Say for example, if you do beat that particular adventure, there's of course the Aurelia herself to contend with, and that Aurelia could be quite annoying to take on, considering she gets to attack every turn with the blade dances and whatnot. It might be worth steering clear of this one if you are not too confident. And frankly, there's really no shame in heading into the 3-star Thresh adventure, which also gives the same amount of XP and arguably at the least amount of effort. The reason for that is quite simply because of the enemies that you're going to encounter in this game. The first battle here in the Collector of Souls is much easier compared to the Kai'Sa adventure, so arguably progression is probably going to be much easier in this one. There is one main roadblock, however, which is the Tryndamere, the mini-boss Tryndamere. Now that Tryndamere will come on at 8 mana, which is your saving grace, which means you have a lot of time to essentially attack before the Tryndamere comes on. But the one problem with that is of course the star powers, which will essentially revive the first unit that dies every round. However, I think in my opinion it should be fairly manageable and at least easier compared to the Aurelia battle. All you need to do is you just need to find some clever ways to finesse and trick your way through that Tryndamere adventure. And once you're on the Thresh, it should be smooth sailing from there. You should be able to easily get your completion. This adventure also gives 1925 XP, which is really good. In fact, a lot of XP in my opinion. And it should consistently bring you up by 1 level if you are playing within the range of 11 to 20. Now, the alternative I have for you here, if this is too difficult, is to go ahead and head back to Piltover, where you're gonna take on the 2.5 star Viktor here. So the reason why I recommend the 2.5 star Viktor is quite frankly because in my opinion, the 2.5 star Draven is a little bit finicky.
Sometimes maybe good, sometimes maybe shit.
So my main gripe here is basically the Lee Sin. The Lee Sin, as we all know, has the potential to Dragon's Rage your unit into the Nexus, which isn't fun at all. So I would prefer to just steer clear of this entirely. However, if you do get past the Lee Sin, the Draven might be an easy one to take on. Quite simply because he is fairly aggressive, yes, but if you are able to finesse your way through the Lee Sin, I don't think Draven would be too big of a problem, at least in my opinion. But coming back onto the Viktor here, I like to go to Viktor because of the way the Viktor works. Viktor is a little bit slow compared to the Draven in my opinion, but the only problem with this adventure really is the mini-boss, which is against Azir. Azir is fairly aggressive, and ideally you would like to try to find some way to control or prevent that from happening. However, if you are able to control the Azir effectively, you should be able to progress with little to no effort at all. And once you're done with the adventure, I believe you're gonna get around 1.6k XP. I can't remember the exact amount because once again, I have been grinding on the Thresh. I have not needed to fall back to the 2.5 star Machine Hero. However, it should be also a fairly reliable way to get the XP in order to level up your champions kinda quickly. Alright, so moving on to the final aspect today, which is of course level 21 and above. So my recommendation for level 21 and above, as absurd as it may sound, is to go into the 4-star Aurelion Sol. Now the reason why I recommend the 4-star Aurelion Sol, because you don't really have to get to the Aurelion Sol to get the most XP. If you do get to the Aurelion Sol itself and you do win that battle, you're gonna get 4.5k XP, which is all the better. However, if you don't get to the Aurelion Sol battle and you fall short at maybe the second mini boss, or potentially you fall short at the battle just before Aurelion Sol, you're still gonna get a lot of XP. Now if you do fall short at the battle before Aurelion Sol, you should get roughly 3500 XP or something, which is still not too shabby. And in my opinion, that's gonna be really great, especially on the higher levels, since you're gonna need a lot of that XP in order to bring your champion to level 30 quicker. Now I know this could be a really big ask for many of you guys out there, and some of you who are just starting out this game might have a little bit of problem with this one. So the alternative that I present recommend to you is actually the 3.5 star Galio. Admittedly, I have not been doing the 3.5 star Galio for quite some time since we're focusing a lot on the Aurelion Sol, but this is also a fairly tough adventure. However, if you compare this with the Aurelion Sol, there's no denying that the Galio is definitely a little bit easier in comparison. However, there is one thing that could be a little bit problematic for those of you who are playing into the Galio here. Actually, two things now that I think about it. The first one would probably be the Viego, a guaranteed Viego boss into the Galio here. Now that Viego could potentially wreck your deck essentially by stealing your units or killing your champions, so you might have to play your way around that one, somehow really play smartly into that particular battle. But aside from that, the main problem would probably be the Galio itself. Now the Galio has the potential to get, I believe, 3 potential champion pairings if I'm not mistaken. One of it is the Senna, the other is going to be a Malphite, and another one is going to be Shyvana. I cannot remember if there are any more, but the 3 that comes to mind are these 3. And if you guys have been playing this mode quite often, you will know there is no way to know what the champion pairing is. You only know it once you've entered the game itself, and that randomness could be a little bit problematic. However, if you do beat the Colossus battle here, you should still get a good chunk of XP. Once again, I cannot remember this amount because I have been focusing on the Aurelion Sol, but if I had to hazard a guess here, I would say around the 3000 mark, around the ballpark of 3000 or so. So it could be also a decent option to grind in order to get more XP, in order to level up your champions really quickly. Hey guys, Future Calflos here. So I forgot to mention this in the original recording, so I'm gonna record a second segment here regarding what I want to talk about. Basically what I want to say is that another alternative that you can and should do actually to get a consistent amount of XP is to actually go into your weekly adventures. Now, the reason for that is quite simply because every week there's gonna be a refreshed adventure, and sometimes you can get a week where you get like a 4-star adventure, which was the 5th adventure last week if I'm not mistaken. Or like right now you get a 3.5 star adventure with the Azir. So these are probably good adventures to go ahead and undertake if you want to get a lot of XP quickly, because essentially these adventures will be influenced by the difficulty multiplier here, but at the same time they will take less battles to complete. So these adventures should give you a fairly decent chunk of XP for a less amount of time, and the reason why I say fairly decent and not more is quite simply because even though there is a difficulty multiplier for taking on a harder adventure, the number of battles that you complete also affects your amount of XP given. So like I said earlier, the same theory applies. If you complete a easier or go deeper into an easier adventure, you actually get more XP than exiting earlier from a tougher adventure. The same theory applies here. If you complete a 3.5 star adventure that has less battles than the actual 3.5 star adventure like the Galio, you're still gonna get less XP, but at the end of the day, you're doing less work to get that amount of XP. So essentially, you can consistently grind, and in the long run, in the time frame, you should be getting more XP overall. So hopefully that makes sense, and that's pretty much all I have for you today. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, this informative video on how I level up my champions in the Path of Champions. And if you did, consider leaving a like as well as subscribing to the channel. I will be uploading a lot of the new champion animations when they are released. I just released the Aatrox one yesterday. I will be compiling it for my signature compilation here on the channel. And also I wanted to keep this for the end of the video, that way I don't take up too much of your time. I get the important stuff out first. But I've also just created a Discord here based on popular demand, so feel free to join it if you want to. I'm gonna have the link in my bio as well as on the community post or something. But yeah, feel free to join and feel free to subscribe. I'd really appreciate that support, but most importantly, it's so that you don't miss future episodes or uploads of Legends of Runeterra or Path of Champions content just like this one. And with that being said, this is Caplo signing off. Thank you so much for watching. Thanks for joining me as well. Hopefully I catch you guys in the next one. Goodbye.